The Kansas City Chiefs were back on the practice field today in tropical St. Joseph, Missouri, and we have quite a few notes to get into, including, I believe, the very first note I have had this entire training camp on the quarterbacks, and that note is as such. Fight nearly broke out on the offensive sideline during team. Drue Tranquill emerged without a helmet, gesturing and heated. Pat dragged him out of there. Now, this might not seem like a quarterback note. This might not seem like something that should end up with a QB on top of the note here. But have you seen Drue Tranquill? Drue Tranquill is an exceptionally frightening individual. On the defense, he might be Chris Jones, Leo Chanel, maybe Drue Tranquill is the scariest guy that you would not want to run into in a dark alley. Patrick, Mr. Mahomes, don't do that. Don't do that. If a fight breaks out, promptly retreat to the other side of the field. I don't care who's fighting. I don't care if it's fans in the stands fighting. I don't care if there are only expletives being thrown and not fists. Patrick, you do not belong in the melee. I hope you were watching this. At wide receiver, Peter S. Sweeney, and the S ain't for sweet. Interesting 5-minute sequence for Rashee Rice during 11-on-11. Rice catches a pass from Mahomes. Then Rice throws a ball at Jack Cochran's helmet. Cochran takes exception and shoves Rice. Then Rice gets sick on the sideline. Guys, is it training camp if Rashee Rice hasn't thrown up yet? Apparently this is just, what does Rashee Rice eat? Is he eating cereal before 95-degree training camp heat? Is that what's going on here? Is the milk curdling in Rashee Rice's stomach? You can't go with the milk before practice. Now, another reason that I point this out, well, obviously, I believe it's the same fight as this, but we're getting a little bit testy. There were a whole lot of punches thrown and expletives slung last training camp, and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So, putting it out there that maybe, just maybe, the heated exchanges from players in practice do mean something. From Nick Roche, we get this. Hardman, Worthy, and Remigio appear to be the top 3 options at punt returner. I'm not sure how I feel about any of that. Mecole Hardman, I sort of generally don't trust. Xavier Worthy, one thing about returning punts is sometimes you get absolutely blasted. And I'm not sure that a 123-pound man gets absolutely blasted in the NFL and lives to fight another day. Remigio, I like the idea of Nico Remigio, returning punts. He's got 0 experience in the NFL in general. I think, however, perhaps all of us are a little bit gun-shy after the Sky Moore experiment just a couple seasons ago. So, I don't know if you've ever tried to catch a punt or a kickoff. It's terrifying, man. Catching a punt while you know there are 205-pound men streaking down the field in order to absolutely annihilate you. And you can't look at them. You're up here. You're doing this. You're trying to figure out, can I catch it? Do I wave it off? Is it going this way? Is it going this way? Am I going to have enough time to run after I secure the catch? So I'm not really making fun of Sky Moore with how absolutely terribly that experiment went, and it did go absolutely terribly. But it is, I think we are all maybe in Chiefs Kingdom a little bit gun shy about punt returners because of that. We get this from Pete as well. Andy Reid was at the microphone after practice in an interview, and he said, Pete gives us this. Andy Reid realizes the talent he has in the wide receiver room in terms of depth. He says the fringe receivers have a long time to make it tough on them. Reid reveals they begin to have an idea of wide receiver numbers after the second preseason game in a couple of weeks. This is an interesting comment. We thought at this time last year, I thought, maybe that's a more fair assessment, because I was wrong. I thought that the Kansas City Chiefs had quite a bit of depth last year at the wide receiver spot. All you really had to do was have Sky Moore take a step forward, Justin Watson be in the offense for another year, Kadarius Toney forget that he has 10 fingers and 9 of them are thumbs. Any of those things, and I think that oh boy, I'm blanking on his name right now. The guy that was with us for a season, I'm not going to think of it, but he came here from the Giants as well and was only here last year. He played marginal snaps last year. I'm blanking on his name. But anyway, I thought that the Kansas City Chiefs had some pretty good depth at wide receiver last year, and apparently so did they as they broke training camp broke the preseason with 7 wide receivers on the 53-man roster. So they must have been under the impression that they had depth at wide receiver too, and it turned out it was sort of just a log jam of a bunch of guys making each other look good because none of them was any good. It appears that was what happened last year in training camp. Hopefully, that is not what's happening this year. I refuse to believe it's what's happening this year because the Kansas City Chiefs do know who Rashee Rice is. The Kansas City Chiefs do know who Hollywood Brown is. Xavier Worthy seems to be fitting in with that duo quite well. And there seems to be a legitimate hierarchy of talent at the spot, including 2 guys that have been unsung in the NFL thus far, Justin Ross and Nico Remigio. So hopefully there is actual depth at the position as opposed to illusory depth at the position. Along the offensive line, one note from Ron Kopp, and then I just have an observation here. Ron gives us, just notice Kingsley with an extremely fast pass set from the snap. Impressive. But be careful, young fella. Wouldn't that be awful if all this season, Jawan Taylor's doing okay, but that new guy, we've got to throw the flags on him. Wouldn't that be awful if it just happened to be that way? And the general observation I have from the snippets of camp that I am exposed to through Twitter, what would you call them? Not reels, small Twitter videos. CJ Hansen is getting worked. CJ Hansen is getting absolutely worked in training camp, in the one-on-ones. I have not noticed or read anything about CJ Hansen participating in team drills, so I don't know how that's going, if that's going. Likely, in my opinion, a redshirt season for CJ Hansen. I think we always kind of assumed that this would be a redshirt season for the 7th round offensive lineman, but it looks pretty guaranteed at this point that that is what's going to be happening. At tight end, Nick gives us Chiefs running a lot of 3 tight end sets with Kelsey, Gray, and Wiley during run game install. I'm telling you, the Chiefs are going to have 2 different offenses this year. And here's what's going to be exciting. Remember, I talked about Wanye Morris at offensive guard before it happened. There are certain things that lead you to believe that way. If not only do the Kansas City Chiefs have an offense between the 20s that includes Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, McCole Hardman, and Kadarius Toney, all of the speed that they have on the field. Not only do we have that, right? But once we get inside the 20, if all of a sudden linemen sub out to, guys, if all of a sudden the Kansas City Chiefs get in the red zone and 3 tight ends come onto the field, Jawan Taylor leaves and Wanye Morris takes the field, maybe Joe Thuney comes out and Hunter Nourzad walks onto the field, it's just a whole different offense from the 20 in, allowing Jawan Taylor, allowing Joe Thuney a few plays off here and there, and they just have the absolute tank offense on the field, which, by the way, apparently today at practice, and I forgot to get this note taken here, apparently at practice today, CARSON STEELE was working blocking drills, run blocking drills. I'll allow you a moment to process that if you must, but what it means, if a running back is run blocking, it means that he is on the field with another running back, which means there might be a fullback in this offense, which means inside the 20, what if you've got your 5 offensive linemen, you've got your Patrick Mahomes, that's 6, 7, 8, 9 with your 3 tight ends, 10 with a fullback, 11 with Isaiah Pacheco. We're going full Marty ball inside the 20. And here's the thing. You're still a passing offense. Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, and Jared Wiley are on the field. You can still throw the ball. Isaiah Pacheco has looked better in passing drills this season. CARSON STEELE, if you'll remember back from the rookie training camp, I believe it was, CARSON STEELE's the guy who caught the behind-the-back pass from Patrick Mahomes. I don't remember from the scouting whether CARSON STEELE is good at catching the ball or not. Just off the top of my head, Imani Bailey is a pretty talented receiving back. Deneric Prince, by the way, has often looked really good in receiving drills and running routes, etc. So just imagine that. The Chiefs get to the red zone, maybe not the red zone, you maybe the 10. The goal line offense from the 10 in is 3 receiving tight ends, a couple of bigger offensive linemen, CARSON STEELE, a 245-pound fullback running back, and Isaiah Pacheco, who just likes to run into stuff, whose hobby is smashing things. That would be a treat, guys. I don't know that I've ever seen. Obviously, I'm just making things up, kind of bloviating, right? Because we haven't seen any evidence of this being a transitional type offense. We've just seen the different groupings and not a whole lot in between. So, still hypothetical at this point, but man, that would be something. Defensive back Charles Goldman gives us this. Chiefs cornerback Keith Taylor still getting some work with the first team defense. He was in there on what would have been a coverage sack on number 15. The cornerback position, so Andy Reid talked a little bit about the depth at wide receiver. I don't know that I've ever seen this much depth at cornerback. I don't know that I have. You've got 5 guys who could legitimately take starting reps for the Kansas City Chiefs depending on what part of the offense or what part of the defense you were talking about running. You have Trent McDuffie, who's absolutely a starter. Trent McDuffie, who's an all-pro. You have Keith Taylor, who has been running with the number ones quite a bit. Joshua Williams, who was all but groomed to be the number 2 cornerback. You have Jalen Watson, who is my pick for the number 2 cornerback. And then you have Kelvin Joseph, who has also been taking some time with the ones this season. Or this preseason, pardon me. That's 5 guys right there. Just that have been running with the ones. It will be very, very interesting to see how this works out. It is going to be very, very interesting to see if there are any trades made. Speaking of trades, when you talk about the Ihmir Smith-Marsette level of player, and remember, so the Chiefs carried 7 wide receivers onto the roster last year, and their 8th guy, someone traded for him. Just keep that in mind. But when we're talking about the Ihmir Smith-Marsette level sort of the roster, Chiefs cornerback Ekow Boye-Doe steps in front of a Carson Wentz pass to Justin Ross. Would have been a pick 6. Ekow Boye-Doe is going to be one of those guys who's going to be a tough decision for this coaching staff. Last season, Khalef Halassi, the Chiefs tried to sneak him through waivers to their practice squad. They were not successful. Ekow Boye-Doe did pass through waivers and end up on the Chiefs practice squad. I do not believe that he would last that long again. I think that someone would pluck Ekow Boye-Doe off of the waiver wire. When you look at this note here, it doesn't seem very impressive. Well, it's training camp. A guy would have gotten a pick 6. Now, when it says would have been a pick 6, I don't know if that means that he didn't catch it or if he didn't take it all the way back or if they just blew the whistle. I don't know what that really means. But when you examine this comment a little closer, Ekow Boye-Doe, a guy who was essentially a practice squad player last season, got a few reps, but not a whole lot, picked off Carson Wentz, a former starting quarterback in the NFL, not just a starting quarterback in the NFL. Carson Wentz does not get the proper sort of respect that he deserves. Carson Wentz, I'll pull it up here. If you had to guess how many passing yards Carson Wentz has in the NFL, what would you guess? Would it be 22,300? 22,292 to be precise? That is a successful NFL career. A touchdown to interception ratio of 153 to 67. A passer rating over his entire NFL career of 89.4. This is a legitimate NFL quarterback. Okay, yeah, but it was Justin Ross he was covering. Justin Ross, who has like 5 receptions in the NFL. Justin Ross, a guy who has for 2 years basically been a practice squad player. Justin Ross, who, by the way, has been almost unstoppable at times during this training camp. Who, by the way, seems to have a great connection with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz seems to love just saying, I'll throw it up there for Justin Ross and we'll figure it out. And Justin Ross has been rewarding him during this training camp. So that is a more impressive play than at first blush it might seem. A note at linebacker from Ron. Chiefs starting base defense features Jack Cochran running middle linebacker during walkthroughs. With Nick Bolton out, Spags would rather plug Cochran in than have Tranquil move from Will. I agree. Me too. Jack Cochran is underrated. Hopefully, Jack Cochran is not needed this season. Hopefully, Nick Bolton is back at full strength well before the regular season begins. But I would not be upset if the Kansas City Chiefs decide to give Nick Bolton a few reps off every once in a while and put Jack Cochran on the field. Jack Cochran is a guy that has not had a whole lot of playing time, but when you look at his measurables, 6'3", it's a good height, 236 pounds, a little on the light side, 4.65 40-yard dash, pretty good time, 1.6 10-yard split, that's decent, 41-inch vertical, 10-foot 4-inch broad jump, and 19 reps on the bench press. Jack Cochran is an explosive guy. And if you can find footage of Jack Cochran, it was I have to say it was hard. But he looks like a safety in coverage. He's a very springy individual. He's a guy who was always between the target and the quarterback. I think if he is, in fact, forced into action, the Chiefs may have a diamond in the rough with Jack Cochran. If he is able to, if he can digest the professional game, he has a unique skill set, he has a unique athleticism, and I think he could make an impact. Speaking of guys who can make an impact, this is just an observation. Fabian Levette is making the 53-man roster. Fabian Levette looks impressive in one-on-one drills. Fabian Levette has at times stuffed the run. So apparently the Kansas City Chiefs just can't run it up the middle against the Kansas City Chiefs. That has been the tenor of this entire training camp. The Chiefs guard to guard between the tackles running game has been stuffed every stop along the way this preseason, which I have to admit makes me a little worried because the Chiefs' weakness on defense last season was running between the tackles. The Chiefs' weakness on defense last season. Did I say so? The Chiefs' weakness on defense last season was running between the tackles. I don't know if I said that right the first time. The Chiefs' weakness on the defense in general, positional value, was defensive tackle. So if it is not that guys like Neil Farrell have stepped up, if it is not that Fabian Levette has emerged as a real playmaker, if it is not that Tershawn Wharton has come back from his injury stronger than ever he was, this might spell trouble for the Kansas City Chiefs running game. But, guys, I think Fabian Levette's real. I think Neil Farrell may have taken a long-awaited step forward. I think the defensive tackles for the Chiefs might be playing more up to par than down to expectation. So that is what I have for Fabian Levette. I'm going to stop just short of guaranteeing that he makes the roster. And one final observation, I don't remember who said 75 yards. Someone had tweeted this out, and I remembered it but forgot to copy the tweet. So if this is you, I apologize. Matt Araiza is drilling 75-yard punts in practice, apparently. Guys, offensive tackle, okay, might be a weakness for the Chiefs this season. I don't think the interior of the offensive line is. Wide receiver should not be. Isaiah Pacheco, in my opinion, is a top 12 running back in the NFL. I think Deneric Prince is underrated behind him. Patrick Mahomes is obviously the number one quarterback in the NFL, regardless of what NFL players would vote on. Obviously, the tight end position might be the best in the NFL right now. The Chiefs appear to have had a couple things work out for them at defensive tackle. The defensive end position is stacked, and once Charles Omenihu comes back, it just exacerbates. The linebackers are really good. The safeties, guys, they might be really, really good. The cornerbacks, missing L'Jarius Sneed, but got some depth. And now they have maybe the best kicker in the NFL, and with a guy who is looking like he's going to be the best punter in the NFL. How do you beat the Chiefs? How do you beat them? How do you beat them? You're going to pin them deep and Matt Araiza flips the field from his own 10? Are you going to stop the running game? Okay, well, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Hollywood Brown are going to have something to say about that. You're going to stop the passing game? Well, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Hollywood Brown are going to have something to say about that. Rashee Rice is, I would say he's no punk, but a guy who throws up on the sidelines 3 times at training camp kind of sounds like a punk. So it's maybe not the most opportune time to get away with that line. This defense, I don't know how it gets worse than last year other than one cornerback spot, which, of course, that could be the linchpin that held the entire defense together. We won't know until we see it on a Sunday. But guys, I don't know how you beat this team. I just don't. Obviously, they will lose games. They're going to lose games. It's the NFL. It is a longer season than when the Patriots went undefeated. Obviously, they're going to lose games. I just don't know how you set out to beat them. Football's a funny game. A ball bounces here, someone fumbles there, there's an interception at a costly position in the field. Maybe Kadarius Nine Thumbs Tony bats one into the air, gets a pick six. Those sorts of things happen, right? And you lose a football game because football games are close in the NFL. A couple mistakes can get you a loss. What I'm saying is, you are an opposing coach. Put yourself in Harbaugh's position. When you look at this Chiefs roster, what do you say? That's what I'm going to do. What is your strategy? What are your tactics? The mission is to win the football game. The strategy is, I think what will happen is teams are going to sell out on the blitz. I almost have to imagine that's what happens. That's what I would do. That's what I would try. Sell out on the blitz. I would disguise it and sell out anyway. I don't know what else. I do not know what else. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.